Okay, welcome back. This is section 2 on the 6th, if we were attending class on the 2nd of June, Kcpc Ventures and 4 unit 10. So here we are going to be using our workbook. If you would take that out, please, and turn to page 114. Unit 10, free time. Read and answer the questions, then listen. If you have a QR and you can use it on your cell phone and you want to listen to it, please do. So, what do you see in the picture? Bride and a groom dancing. Okay, so here we have the email to heather@cup.org from Nicole at cup.org, and the subject is Salma's wedding reception. Let's read. Hi, Heather. You asked me about Salma's wedding reception. It was wonderful. Notice exclamation point because you're saying this with more than regular emotion. It was wonderful. I don't know very much about Egyptian wedding customs, so a lot of things really surprised me. For one thing, Salma and Yusuf already had their wedding ceremony last month. Their tradition is to have a very small ceremony for just the parents. Then, a few weeks later, they have a big reception for all their friends, family members, and acquaintances. Another big surprise was that the reception was really two parties, one for men and one for women. The parties were in two different rooms in a hotel. There were 200 women at the party that I went to. I sat at a table with Salma's sisters, and they explained the traditions to me. After a while, Salma and Yusuf came in and sat on a big sofa decorated with flowers. Salma wore a beautiful white dress, and Yusuf wore a black suit. We all had a special drink called Shabbat that symbolizes good fortune. We talked about a little earlier. There was a big show with dancers and musicians, and later we had dinner with lots of courses. I can't remember all of them. I was also surprised because guests didn't bring presents to the wedding. Salma and Yusuf weren't registered for gifts at a store. Instead, the guests gave money to the bride. Salma's sister Noura is getting married in October, and she invited me to her wedding reception. I'm really looking forward to it. So before we do the bottom part, lower half, I'd like to go through a little bit of the pronunciation and special things that I want to point out to you in the paragraph, which will also reinforce some of the things that we are going to be talking about in the lower half of the page. So notice it's an email, and there's a single line here. When you're writing an email, there is no indentation in a paragraph. The greeting, hi Heather, comma, leave a little space. Then begin the composition. You asked me about Salma's wedding reception, period. It was wonderful. We talked about the exclamation point. I didn't know very much about Egyptian wedding customs, comma, so a lot of things really surprised me. So this is one idea that she's talking about. Now she's going to talk about the details of this sentence, so you're starting a new paragraph. Also, there's a little space there. You probably know all this. I'm just kind of going over that. For one thing, this is a little introductory phrase that is going to begin a little list. It's kind of like saying first, but For one thing, comma, Salma and Yusuf already had their wedding ceremony last month, period. Their tradition is to have a very small ceremony just for the parents, period. Then a few weeks later, another little introductory phrase with a comma. They have a big reception for all their friends, family, comma, family members, comma, and acquaintances. When you have a little list, you put a comma and you put "and" before the last item on the list. You also put a comma there. Another big surprise was that the reception was really two parties, comma. They're not creating another sentence, they're including this idea in the same sentence because it is very closely connected. So they're putting a comma and said one for men and one for women. The parties were in two different rooms in a hotel, straightforward. There were 200 women at the party that I went to. Well, exclamation point. That was so astonishing that she used an exclamation point. I sat at a table with Salma's sisters, comma, and they explained the traditions to me. These are very closely connected, so it's a compound sentence, putting a comma in front of the "and." Next, after a while, another introductory phrase, comma. Salma and Yusuf came in and sat on a big sofa decorated with flowers. So there's a compound subject, compound verb. Compound subject is what? Salma and Yusuf. Compound verb, came in, sat on, connected by "and." This is another way to present all your ideas instead of short, choppy little sentences. You are combining the two ideas that are really part of one main idea. They are very closely connected. Salma wore a beautiful white dress, comma, and Yusuf wore a black suit. Compound sentence was kind of long. They put a comma. We all had a special drink called Shabbat that symbolizes good fortune. Thank you. I'm trying not to interrupt, even if things like this happen. I'm just trying to keep going, but I did want to shut off the phone. My grandson. Okay, we had there was a big show with dancers and musicians, comma, and later we had dinner with lots of courses. Compound sentence, they used a comma before "and." I can't remember all of them. Exclamation point. She had lots of feeling behind this particular sentence, so you use an exclamation point to show that. Next. I was also surprised because guests didn't bring presents to the wedding. Straightforward. Salma and Yusuf weren't registered for gifts at the store. Straightforward. Instead, comma, the guests gave money to the bride. So this is a little introductory phrase that explains what she wants to say, but it's short and makes the composition more interesting. Salma's sister Nora is getting married in October, comma, and she invited me to her wedding reception. Compound sentence, comma, in between. I'm really looking forward to it. Exclamation point. This is said with feeling. Take care, exclamation point, said with feeling. Okay, let's move on to the lower half. What kind of wedding did Salma and Yusuf had? An Egyptian wedding. Number 2, what 3 things surprised Nicole about Salma and Yusuf's wedding reception? Number 1, yes, the reception was a few weeks after the ceremony. What's another thing that surprised her? There were two different parties, one for men, one for women. What was the third surprise? Yes, there were no presents. Okay, number 3. Who was invited to the ceremony? The parents. Who was invited to this reception? Friends, family, and acquaintances. What did people give the bride? Money. Okay, so there we have finished 114, and we're going to move on to 115 in the workbook. Everyone, circle the correct words. The dinner had 3 courses. For the first course, we had soup. Number 2, I love going to wedding receptions because I always enjoy parties. Number 3, a white dress for the bride is a tradition in the United States. It's an old custom that many women follow. Number 4, Mr. and Mrs. Min are acquaintances of the family. We are not very close to them. That's right, because an acquaintance is someone you know, but not very close. What would you call personal friends, right? A personal friend rather than an acquaintance. Number 5, I'm looking forward to my brother's wedding. I'm happy that he's getting married. If you're looking forward to something, then you're happy. Number 6, Grace and Michael are registered for wedding gifts. The store has a list of presents they want. Okay. Number 3, vocabulary, acquaintance, courses, fortune, looking forward, reception, registered, symbolizes, tradition. Number 1, my friends registered for wedding gifts at Austin's store. Number 2, there were more than 300 people at my brother's wedding reception. Number 3, the dinner had 3 courses: soup, chicken, and cake. By the way, how many courses do you usually have at a regular dinner at night in your home? I think that people from different countries have different traditions about that. And if it's a regular dinner at home in an American house, they will have one course but served together. The meat, fish, or protein is on the same plate as a starch like potatoes or noodles, and several vegetables, and the salad. They are all served together as one course, as opposed to eat your salad, finish that, then put down the next plate with the protein and the vegetables. In a restaurant, that's usually what happens, but not at home for dinner in many American households. Then the second course in an American household is usually dessert. And rarely do people have coffee or tea afterwards, but I know that that is a tradition in many cultures. Okay, number 4. It's a tradition in my culture that the groom shouldn't see the bride's dress before the wedding ceremony. Number 5, in the United States, brides often wear something borrowed from a happily married family member for good fortune. 6. Throwing rice at a wedding symbolizes fertility and longevity. By the way, what does fertility mean? And who does it refer to, the man or the woman? It actually refers to both, doesn't it? And so fertility means whether you can have children or not. Okay, number 7, Jorge is looking forward to his graduation party. All of his friends will be there. Number 8, Dr. Kim is an acquaintance of my parents. He lives near them. Notice, an acquaintance. Because A is a vowel, you're going to use an, A-N. Well, we're not going to be able to listen to part 4, but we are going to read it. Number 1, Giselle and Bill wanted a small or big wedding. We don't know. Number 2, Giselle's mom wants or doesn't want a lot of people at the wedding. Number 3, for the groom or the bride, wearing something old symbolizes a connection for the past. Well, actually, we do know the answer to this. Yes, it's the bride. She wears something old as a connection to the past. So many times in America, a woman or a bride will wear pearls from her mother or her grandmother, or she will wear earrings that she has received from her mother or her grandmother, or in her wedding bouquet, she will have a handkerchief that belongs to her mother or her grandmother, and she will wrap that around the stem of the flowers so that she's carrying and touching something from someone in her family. Okay, number 4, Nick thinks that it is or is not good to follow wedding traditions. Okay, so we have finished that, and we're going to, in the next section, to conditionals. And actually, we did already start conditionals here, and we're going to move on to the next page. So because we only have a minute left or a minute or so left, we're going to go back to the book, 124, and review the grammar focus and move on to page 125 at the beginning of the next section. So it says, we're not going to read the peach part, we're just going to read the examples that they give us. Future, real, possible. That means it is possible. The example is, if I go to the wedding, I will wear my new shoes. The other example, if Jane isn't working on Saturday, she will go to the wedding. So you're using will in this particular situation because it's possible that it will happen. On the other side, however, is not possible. If I went to the wedding, I would wear my new shoes, but I'm not going, so you're using the word would. Next part, if Jane weren't working on Saturday, she would go to the wedding, but she is working on Saturday, so she cannot go to the wedding. It is not possible for her to go to the wedding, so you're going to use the word would whenever it's not possible. In the little blue box here, useful language. The future unreal conditional form of the word be, is, were. Okay, well, we did that and we still have a few more minutes. Let's go over the ingredients that go into a cordial Shabbat and the names of the countries. What are they? Iran, Turkey, Bosnia, West Asia, India, Indonesia. Okay, that's it for this section. See you next